Okay, you're on.
Ready?
Yep.
Is that a good sound? Alright, so now remember, when we're talking about a recessive condition like Calpain, it's something where both parents are carriers for it, and it's actually pretty common to be a carrier for it. I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but it's probably around maybe 1 in 50 to 1 in 100 people are carriers for this. And we're all carriers for something. I told you that this is just one gene out of 30,000 different genes that didn't work right. I'm probably a carrier for 5 to 10 different things. You're a carrier for 5 different things. Everybody is. It just depends on what those genes are. And when it comes to my children, is as long as I'm not a carrier for the same thing my wife is a carrier for, my children aren't at increased risk for that. But it just happened to be in your family that 2 people who happen to be a carrier for the same thing both happen to pass it on, and we have zero control over that. If we did, I mean, we'd tell you to do things to stop it. Don't eat bananas, or, something, even as possibly seemingly unreasonable as that. But we don't have any control over that. That's just how nature is.
Sure.
When we're talking about when 2 people are carriers, this is showing what their risks are. So the capital R is the gene that works right. The little r is the one that doesn't work right. So this person's a carrier. Same for this person. Every time you have a child, you pass on one copy of your gene or the other, but not both. And it's like a flip of a coin each time which one you pass. Just like you could have 5 children, they could all be boys, and flip a coin 5 times, it could always be heads, or any sort of combination of heads or tails. That each time is a new chance. So the first possibility is that dad passes his gene that works right, his capital R, mom passes her gene that works right. That child is unaffected, not a carrier, won't pass it on. Or dad could pass his gene that doesn't work right, but mom passes hers that does work right. That person is an unaffected carrier, just like their parents, no symptoms, but they could pass it on. And then vice versa, dad could pass his gene that works right, mom could pass hers that doesn't work right. That child is just a carrier, just like her parents. Just like his or her parents.
Like
Correct.
Unaffected, no symptoms.
Correct. Okay. Unaffected, no symptoms, just a carrier could pass it on. And this is regardless of sex. This can be boys or girls.
Okay.
It's only when dad passes his little r, mom passes her little r, and that child gets a double dose, 2 copies of the gene that doesn't work right. That's when the person has the condition. And like we said, it doesn't predict what degree of symptoms they'll have, whether they'll present at an early age or a later age. It just says yes or no, will there be some sort of symptoms. So when 2 people are carriers, it's a 1 out of 4 chance that the child will be affected, 3 out of 4 that they won't be affected. Okay?
Can I ask you this? If I were to get a DNA test done, say when I was a kid, say 5 years old or something, would, by looking at the DNA test, would that be able to tell anything about me having symptoms now or later?
No, that would not have. One, the testing wasn't available back then.
Okay.
The gene for it, like the gene for the most common form of muscular dystrophy, the one you were mentioning, that one was only discovered back in 1986. So people before that, we only had clinical symptoms to go on, or maybe a muscle biopsy. Now with the genetic testing, we're able to zero things in a little bit more. That's why when you read about LGMD, you'll see type 2A, 2B, all the way to 2I. It's because each one of those genes is a different one of those types, where they kind of fall under the same umbrella of limb-girdle muscular dystrophies, but we can zero in and say Calpain, or dysferlin, or one of the other genes. But essentially in the past all we had were clinical symptoms. But that genetic test result wouldn't change. I mean, even if we repeated it 50 years from now, your genetic makeup doesn't change like that. The testing might get better, or we might know more information about those genes over time. And instead of saying unknown significance, we know exactly what the significance is. But that in itself doesn't change. But still, we don't know enough to say, with those 2 genetic changes, you're going to have symptoms at age blank, and it's going to progress in this sort of way.
Hi.
Hi, how are you doing, Doctor?
Good. Nice seeing you.